Hello folks, Phil Gallagher aka ThrabenU here for another Legacy video. Today's video is sponsored by Moxfield.com, and our deck list comes from Azumarian, who wanted me to play Czech Pile. Now, as we all know, Legacy decks have a wonderful history of not having names that actually really make a lot of sense to an outside observer, so let's break down what we're actually looking at. The name Czech Pile tends to refer to value-oriented control decks, usually in about 4 colors. So with this iteration, our primary card advantage engine is going to be Expressive Iteration. If you've been watching Legacy content or playing Legacy, you're well familiar with this card. It's one of the cards that's absolutely at the higher bounds of the format's power level at this point. And what's kind of interesting is that decks are kind of in this race to figure out who can play the most copies of Expressive Iteration, with things like Mystic Sanctuary frequently being used to rebuy it. And this deck is actually designed in a way that it can even get one more rebuy out of these things. So I need to explain the prototype mechanic here. So normally this is a 7 mana card, and when it enters the battlefield, if you cast it, exile target instant or sorcery with mana value less than or equal to its power from your graveyard, copy that card, and you can cast it for free. Now, if you pay it for its prototype cost, instead of being able to get something with 4 or less due to its initial power, it can be 2 or less. So at 3 mana, it's on sort of power level curve with Snapcaster Mage, because Snapcaster and flashing back one of these cards would be 3 mana. But later on in the game, this can kind of do more interesting things and get you your Expressive Iterations, Hymn to Tourach, or even some other things, while having a decent sized body. I have not played with or against this card much. One of the big things that it loses versus Snapcaster Mage is the ability to do things at instant speed with Flash. So that's a major loss, but one of Czech Pile's biggest weaknesses is that it's trying to win the game with relatively small creatures most of the time. Like, a lot of times, Czech Pile decks are attacking with Baleful Strix and Snapcaster Mage for 10 or more turns in order to win the game. Well, this is literally double the body size of a Snapcaster Mage if you can play it for the 7 mana cost. And then we have the supporting cast of some Planeswalkers and some other disruptive creatures that also have some utility. As far as the sideboard goes, this is going to look a little bit more modern. Like, this is very much built towards a newer metagame, with things like Hushbringer attacking Thassa's Oracle, as well as initiative cards, Snuff Out helping to keep up with the blisteringly fast speed of the format, and some newer tech like Brotherhood's End that has just wonderful, wonderful flexibility. Now, one of the downsides of this deck, and one of the reasons why you don't see it a whole lot, is how bad its mana base is. A lot of times, these sorts of decks arise to tier 1 popularity when some broken mana fixing option is available. Think your Deathrite Shamans, your Arkham's Astrolabes, those sorts of things. Because we're trying to support blue, blue, black, black, blue, red, blue, white, red, 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 black, 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 technically, I guess, blue, blue. There's a lot going on, and a lot of is demanded of your mana base, so we'll see how this holds together today. Anyway, let's go ahead and jump into the matches here. If you're new here and you like what you see, please consider subscribing. And if you're regular, throw me a like or a comment. Those things really support my content and help me out a lot. Let's battle. Okay, we've got some stuff. I'll keep this hand. I don't exactly know what I am pondering for immediately. Do I even cast the Ponder this turn? Maybe I don't even cast the Ponder this turn. I don't really know what I want. There's some generically good cards that I could find, like EI, Baleful Strix, Brainstorm Ponder, Thoughtseize, this stuff. I guess for the sake of my curve, I maybe consider doing that. I think I played this one. It's possible I'm supposed to just wait on this Ponder. And Scalding Tarn, get a black source. Yes. Might come at the cost of white mana. It was awkward, but I think I am into this. him as a pretty good, generically powerful card to play on turn 2. And, like, I still have multiple other plays that I can take. And this is what I mean in terms of, like, there being some amount of strain on the mana base. I suppose this was also an option. I kind of feel like I've committed to this him at this point. Waiting another turn here doesn't seem ideal. Yeah. Okay. Hopefully taking that Dark Ritual slows my opponent down a turn. Because if I can do something cool with this opposition agent, it's probably good enough to be game-winning when backed by the other support spells that are in this deck. How's my Graveyard Hate out of this sideboard? A little light. And this is absolutely just going to be land drop pass. I'll fire off the opposition agent in response to a fetch land, otherwise I'm playing Brazen Borrower as a thing to just start attacking in this turn cycle. Unmask, target me. That's awkward. Because if my opponent has Entomb in hand right now, they just play it in response to me casting opposition agent, and it doesn't actually slow them down. I think I just let this resolve. Yep, and there's exactly the play pattern that I was talking about. I think I'm going to let that resolve and have them commit more mana before doing something. Because if they didn't get Grizzlebrand specifically, I've got other options. These aren't really what I'm looking for. Probably hide Swords to Plowshares on the top of my library. Not super happy about this situation. I think I'm going to keep Brazen Borrower Petty Theft up rather than just immediately trying to brainstorm to look at literally one more card for a Force of Will. Alright, opponent is going to 3. And at this point I have to respond. Get that Grizzlebrand out of play. They get my Brainstorm. And my intention is to just play end of turn Brazen Borrower and kill them. I don't think I'm supposed to him to Tourach here, because like that doesn't let me kill them next turn. Reanimates are off. Fetch lands are off. I have a way to get a creature out of play, like that's currently active. I would say I'm a little scared in this situation, but ooh, got more scared. Yep, Archon is good. Go ahead and fetch out my white source now. Undra. This notably means that my opponent is not dead on board to Brazen Borrower, because this is going to gain 3 life. I actually shouldn't do this immediately. Discard that him. I don't want to do it immediately because of giving my opponent bonus life for something like Reanimate. So, Swords Archon out of the way. And then drop Brazen Borrower. Well, that's not bad. Opponent's on a 3-turn clock. I have taken them out of Reanimate range on their biggest and scariest cards. And now it's just a question of, like, do I want to leave up Swords to Plowshares, or do I want to leave up Black to potentially him my opponent when I know they have Grizzlebrand? I think I do leave up the Black. I need to tap that the other way. See where this goes. Wow, that's very awkward. Couldn't have left up for Expressive Iteration in any world. So Teferi goes into my hand. I'm going to put an Expressive Iteration back into the deck and send a Prismatic Ending to exile. Not quite where I wanted that to go. Entombing again? We're entombing again. Another Archon. Which is a pain in the butt for me. Opponent tapped 1 mana and untapped it, so they probably have a Reanimate that they can't cast. Now I have to see if we can dodge them putting that Archon into play. Ooh, Sarah's Emissary. Oh. That was my out to whatever creature they just played. That's a little frustrating. Oh, never mind. So you're telling me there's a chance. It would take now, like, Lotus Petal, plus Reanimation card to get something into play this turn. So I'm going to knock them to 2 and get a redraw. Or not. Alright. Frustrating. But all is forgiven. One good top deck deserves another, right? Here I believe I am supposed to bounce the Archon and leave that stranded in hand, rather than bounce the Animate Dead. And Brainstorm's okay. I will not do that immediately. I need to find another threat, and I've used a Brazen Borrower and an opposition agent already. Each player. So I can't brainstorm into something that stops that. I will end up with one card, so I can't Force of Will that. So that is occurring. Put my opposition agent into play, I suppose. If my opponent wants to go to 1. You do. I don't have my Caracas in game 1. I have that for post-sideboard games. Oh no. Okay, so now I will attempt a Brainstorm. And I just want to put a land into my hand so it doesn't get taken by grief. You can take my Force of Will here. I'll put Thoughtseize on bottom, then Brazen Borrower. It's really unfortunate that my opponent could make a second creature here. Okay, I had to step away from the computer for a minute, but no time should have passed for you all, unless I misclicked something. I don't want to attack into grief. I'm just going to go ahead and pass the turn here. See if my opponent wants to attack in with both of their creatures for some reason. And then I'll Brazen Borrower, bounce Grizzlebrand at a more opportune time. Yes! We'll Petty Theft the Grizzlebrand out of play now. And hopefully that gets me somewhere cool. And we're doing that so that my opponent doesn't gain the life. The life is the thing that's important here, because the reanimates are currently off. My opponent still has a gajillion cards in hand, so things aren't necessarily free here. They are unmasking themselves for the Grizzlebrand, and then they can exhume it. Or Animate Dead it is better. It has been a great game, but I've just kind of been on the wrong side of things here. If my opponent didn't have the Entomb and I played opposition agent out at... Oh, that's gross. And I played opposition agent out at sorcery speed, like, there's a chance I win this, but now I'm just dead to this attack, and my top card is Thoughtseize. I will concede. GG's. Okay, so Caracas is fine, Fluster is okay, Fairy is good, Force of Negation is good, Hidetsugu Consumes All is slow graveyard hate, but it's still graveyard hate, so I'm probably into that. Hushbringer is a card that's technically playable, but it's pretty unexciting. So my copies of Prismatic Ending here are borderline unplayable. I'm not really interested in those. I don't know how many copies of Expressive Iteration I really need here. Him is awkward. Like, it hits like a truck, but causing a creature to go into my opponent's graveyard is probably a no-go here. Like, him is definitely a tool that I do want versus combo. And then I'm at 61. Could get rid of a copy of Arcane Proxy, just as like a decent-sized creature that my opponent might bring back if they like use a discard spell on me. And I don't think I'm going to play the Hushbringers for Archon of Cruelty. This is a slightly awkward hand in terms of mana, because like this is going to enter tapped most of the time, and I think I do need to Thoughtseize on turn 1 since I don't have active Force of Will at the moment. Well, their hand doesn't do anything immediately. I can get Thoughtseize twice on turn 1. I'm probably just taking the Animate Dead here. Faithless Looting is sort of tempting in that, like, that's the way that my opponent could combo me off early. But it's just kind of bad value to do that. One of the worst things about this Thoughtseize, actually, is that my opponent now knows about this Caracas, so there's probably not timelines where they get Grizzlebrand now. They just play around that. Alright, are you doing the second Thoughtseize this turn? No. I agree with that decision. That's a great draw, because that means Force of Will is technically on right now, and it gives me something to do next turn, but, you know. Alright, Marsh Flats is down. Yep. I assume this is goodbye Teferi, rather than goodbye Force of Will or Swords. And I am correct. Alright, so I assume this means my opponent is now going to cast the Faithless Looting that I know about. Yep. Would really like to dodge a creature here. We did not. As an Archon. And just UI complaints. I love this swamp. I think it's beautiful, but like not being able to see that it's a swamp from the graveyard is a major pain. I want this Karakas in play. And then we're going to have to Swords and Archon, which is not a good value-oriented play. Like, my opponent gets a couple cards worth of value out of this thing entering the battlefield. Oh, cool. Go and tell the graveyard, which was a somewhat expected sideboard juke. And we're at the mercy of the top of my deck here. Not what I'm looking for. Play the fetch land over the Volcanic Island, so a future Brainstormer Ponder or whatever will look better. My opponent here can just, like, sit and wait for a Thoughtseize effect if they want to take this known Swords to Plowshares before going for their Archon of Cruelty. Okay. So is this Hardcast Grief? It is Hardcast Grief. So I'm going to let this resolve. They'll take my Swords to Plowshares, and I can keep Force of Will to Force of Will, the thing that brings back the Archon of Cruelty, and then try to find something that answers the grief more naturally. Alright, they're going to leave me with the Swords to Plowshares. I don't think I'm going to just fire that off right now. I'll be punished by drawing a Force of Will if I do that, though. A Force of Negation instead. With that draw, I can consider just Swords to Plowsharing the grief. I think I will. It's not the most exciting thing in the world, but taking the pressure off my life total in the short term is probably pretty good. You may unmask me. That's unfortunate. Yep. I haven't really caught a break here. Okay, there's my break. Go ahead and just fetch now. Mystic Sanctuary was already in play, so I don't super need to wait here. Trying to think what I would need multiple of. The answer is blue, which I already have. I guess technically I might need to cast a fairy at some point. I'm just gonna do this now. Or some sort of, you know, random thing punishes me for not doing it, such as a Pyroblast. Okay, sure. Now, this is the first turn where I get to make a play where I am, like, in the driver's seat. It's going to say we're hoping to top deck, you know, an EI quality card or something like that to really start pulling ahead. I am just going to play out this land drop. It lets my opponent know the coast is clear, but, like, I know they have an Archon of Cruelty, and, like, that's a central portion of their deck. I want to always have access to this card for the purposes of EI into Jace and things like that. Like, the mana count really does matter. Okay. With a fetch land already in play, and with EI into Jace already being live, I don't play this one. I'm definitely, like, worried at this point. Oh my gosh. Draws are not super kind here. And we're not really out of reanimate range just yet. So part of what I'm hoping for here is that my opponent is living in fear. And, like, they play patiently, trying to wait for a good opportunity to play multiple cards in a turn. This Brazen Borrower hit right here is pretty big, because this is the one that shuts off some of the reanimate-based lines. I have 2 Tundras in the deck, so I don't think I need to play this one out. Okay, looks like we've dodged for another turn. Oh, we haven't. Animate Dead on Opposition Agent. That is acceptable. I will fetch in response, though. Let's pick up the Rafine's Tower for better fixing. You may have Opposition Agent. I'm not even going to Swords to Plowshares. That just gives my opponent more life. Deck. Alright, bash in for 3. Put my opponent to 4. I am going to make a land drop this turn. Notably, this is 2 life if I Swords to Plowshares this right now, which is something that I'm going to try to avoid. It's still a 2-turn clock, but I'm not overly excited about it. Yep. Don't even think I put a land into play here. I'm going to say no. Use these lands as things that I discard to Archon of Cruelty. And I don't Swords immediately. Lose my Brazen Borrower. I lose a land. I don't want to give them the life immediately because of things like Reanimate. I'll happily take the 2 in combat here. But 8. Yeah, land's fine. So this is the scary portion. Reanimate is now back on after I do this. Fairy would be a cool draw. EI is a great draw. This is the sort of thing I needed a turn or 2 ago, though, rather than hitting a bunch of lands. Put Hidetsugu into hand. Thoughtseize can go back in the deck. Ponder to exile. It doesn't have red in it, unfortunately, and Opposition Agent is currently locking me out of some things. I'll cast Tundra. Does this one make black? It does make black. Then I will tap this one. Ponder, see if I can get myself out of this in some capacity. Another Brazen Borrower is actually very good. Yeah, I'm very into this. So we'll put Brazen Borrower into my hand. I will Petty Theft this. That gets it back to my hand, meaning that I can fetch. And the Hidetsugu Consumes All is interesting. There's a Brazen Borrower in graveyard right now. I'm going to fetch a red source, but I think I just hold up casting both of these creatures rather than playing the Hidetsugu Consumes All. While the Hidetsugu Consumes All is decent value, there's no creature in graveyard right now. So I'd rather get the clock going. Classic. And that's the punish for not playing Hidetsugu Consumes All last turn. Or a slow, like Sorcery Speed, Opposition Agent. So let's ponder and try to find a counterspell, which I did. No shuffle there. I'll hit in for my 3, and then hope that opponent doesn't have Discard Spell and Reanimation Spell in their 3 cards. I will be countering that. That means I can't cast this in this turn cycle, but that's hopefully okay. Cool. I do have the Jace on top of my library, so this is like not the end of the world. Sacrifice this one. Discard the Hidetsugu Consumes All. I am at 4 life just from random attacks and Archon drains. Play Jace. Get Archon out of the way. Crash in for 3. Opponent goes to 10. I have opponent on a 2-turn clock with the ability to remove creatures that they put into play. And insulation from a Grizzlebrand. It seems like I'm getting to dodge for a turn. Is very much needed. Let's floop Brazen Borrower into play. I will attack for my 6. Now it's like Brainstorm versus Fate Seal. I think I'm just going to Brainstorm. Sure. Go back. Tundra and Delta. I don't think I actually want to fetch immediately, though. Is putting me to 3 leaves me dead to that Archon getting back into play. I think I'm going to just take a non-impressive expressive iteration here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7? Awkward. I mean, that's what I'm doing. Exile Tundra. Play Tundra. Straight up play a 7-drop creature. And then doing this, I'll get another EI. I'll cast that. I guess Swords goes to my hand. Force can go back in deck. Strix can go to exile. And now I should have lethal through just about anything there. I hope the time that I use to step away to go to the bathroom doesn't cause me to time out in this match. Okay, as much as I am into one land Ponder Hounds. I don't think this one is capable. I think it's just too reliant on the top of my deck for multiple cards in order for that hand to work properly. This one's awkward. I think I will keep it, though. It's a little slow, but Fairy is a scary card. I wish I had an untapped land for turn 1 instead so that I could be holding up Flusterstorm, but c'est la vie. Alright, as expected, I lost my Graveyard Hate. Untapped blue source? Nope. My opponent's got a window to go for it here. And after that, I, in theory, should have protection. Alright. Is it happening? It feels like no. It feels like this is Faithless Looting. Yep. Okay, no creature in graveyard. That's quite good for me. Oh. Okay. It's a Ponder. Are we entombing and reanimating? Or entombing and reanimating. There's Grizzlebrand. There's the reanimate. Opponent is at 7. Thank you, Fairy. One card too late. I would like to brainstorm into Caracas. Let's do that. No, I brainstorm into no lands. That's pretty brutal. That probably means that I have lost this game. I just can't draw through these cards now. I can attempt to remove the Grizzlebrand next turn and attempt to stop another card from coming from graveyard, but I think the damage is done. I don't regret the keep. Like, the keep had the sort of things that I need to be successful in the matchup. It was by no means perfect. Yup. Looting's fine. Think they'll use a reanimate on one of those creatures and kill themselves? No. I will get rid of Archon and Grizzlebrand. And not technically dead. We'll take out the Grizzlebrand. My opponent does have to present a new threat. That should be pretty easy to do with 5 cards, though, unfortunately. And, like, I have creatures in graveyard. They're not impressive, but I'm at 13. A 2/2 will do just fine in killing me when I am missing land drops. In case this is just something bad like a Grief, I am just going to put the Snapcaster Mage in play. It is not. Yeah, this is the point where I am just full dead. Get attacked for effectively 9 next turn. Grief as well. Surprised the Grief did not come first, but I don't think it matters. Oh, just okay. I'm fine throwing in the towel there. GG's. Today's video is sponsored by Moxfield.com, which is obviously a deck building website, but it does a lot more than just that. So for example, it can help you keep track of your collection if you plug in what cards you own, or if you're looking to, say, see what the newest precons look like to decide whether or not you want to buy them or quickly look up the cards, that's available in one of these tabs as well. So consider checking them out. I have a reasonable hand that I will be keeping. It's not the best versus Urza Saga. Oh, are we doing more than just that? Putting Force of Will under there. Playing a Chalice. All of that occurs. Oh no. We've got Echo of Eons as a thing that I need to watch out for. And my Source of Plowshares is not currently dealing with Urza Saga tokens. And my opposition agent currently isn't dealing with the Urza Saga search because I'm on the draw and my opponent had acceleration. So my very reasonable looking hand, I won't say has fallen apart, but it's not looking good. I should have played maybe Volcanic Island there. This gets Tundra and this gets Underground Sea. And I'm going to be fetching here so that one of my lands doesn't get Pithing Needled, which would be a major pain in the butt. They're so big. They're about to be 4/4s because I'm probably Brazen Borrowing one of these. I could Brazen Borrower Chalice and then Swords one. I'm just sort of on the back foot here. Oh wow, they're going with Chalice on 0 just to grow these a little bit further and just go for the 2-turn clock kill. I don't think I can take the 7 this turn reasonably. I'm gonna petty theft this and just kind of hope that my deck can do its thing in some capacity and just draw a Teferi or whatever. My cantrips are off if I don't remove Chalice, but removing the Chalice is only a 1-turn window to do cool stuff. The good news is, like, I might realistically be able to double Opposition Agent this out of play. Oh no. Okay. Now I can't do that. I believe I take the 7 here. Go to 11. And drop one of these in play. Teferi, please. Arcane Proxy. That doesn't do anything right now. Oh, maybe that's not true. I probably attack, play this turn, and then throw everybody that I can in front of this construct token next turn. Oh no, this is another one of those cards that does the ugly box thing. I hate the ugly box. Phyrexian Flesh Gorger does the same thing, where that reminder text just shows up over the image. Yep. I will take this hit. My life total is a resource here. Got another Otawara to worry about as something that could blow me out in combat. Probably one more. Not playing stuff. What do you get to minus for? With 0, 1, and 2 off, that's not actually that strong. Walking Ballista, though, that is a major pain in my butt. The plan has changed, fortunately. We're now in chump block mode. I need to attack and kill that Karn. Then I need to Force of Will Walking Ballista, chump block construct token, and then figure out from there how to deal with this creature. I have a few chump blocks available. There's the Ballista, which is not happening. The good news is if I end up being able to take this construct token out of play, my opponent has stopped a lot of cards from their own deck. I can play around some stuff by not attacking. Like, I can play around another Otawara, for example. But I kind of feel like I need to get these points in where I can. I'm going to go ahead and take the attack. I am going to sorcery speed play out Opposition Agent, though, because I don't want my opponent to be able to draw and hardcast Force of Will. Incoming construct. I will take that hit. Or rather, my Opposition Agent will. That's annoying, but also not unexpected. Mystic Sanctuary isn't really good right now. Up an untapped land. And we'll go ahead and take this opportunity to play a Brazen Borrower. Hope my opponent's last card isn't an Echo. Why do I talk? This construct is now 100% lethal if it ever gets to connect. And I'm just going to assume that my opponent can now do something that kills me, even though there are 3 chalices in play, shutting off some number of their options. They've tapped and untapped some stuff a couple of times. I think they're trying to cast a Kappa Cannoneer. Oh, that's Karn into Mycosynthelatus immediately. Oh. I mean, you can kill me any way you want here. Okay. A Day's Undoing on top of that. That's reasonable. I'm at 3 life. I can't take any damage. Karn Mycosynthelatus happens next turn, as does another Urza Saga token. I can bounce, attack in for 6, kill Karn, die to Construct. I can kill Construct, stay alive, attack Karn for 3. They'll technically be in the game, I guess. But is not good. Oh, it's just Force of Will. Okay, I will concede. Oh, it's another Hullbreacher. Sure. At that point, I'm dead to just both of those creatures attacking, even if I bounce this. And I'm not getting another card because of Hullbreachers. Okay, so I've got Pyroblasts that I can play. Stony Silence is reasonable. Brotherhood's End, Hidetsugu Consumes All, and Wear Tear are good. Snuff Out, I suppose, is playable, but is kind of unexciting. I'm not super interested in Hymn to Tourach versus my opponent's pile of draw twos. Opposition Agent isn't particularly exciting. It stops Urza Saga searches, though. I think I don't want to be attacking my opponent's hand. I think I want to be countering things and playing to the board. That gives me something that looks like this. 19 lands enough for this deck list, by the way. Man. ETB tapped land, so I can't actually brainstorm on turn 1 to set up Stony Silence on turn 2. If I have to brainstorm on turn 2 to set things up, this hand is very slow. I think I'm going to ship this one. This hand is reasonable. I think I'm just going to throw the bad lands back in the deck. And we'll try to use Ponder the Fish for some Stony Silence sort of card. This is a Strix and a Strix matchup. I would rather find a Hammer than Strix. I'm going to go ahead and shuffle that. Fairy's not exactly a Hammer, but I'm more happy with that draw than I am a draw of Baleful Strix, even though it's lower. Alright, no turn 1 Chalice or anything from my opponent. Threw you back. I got rid of you because I did not want you. Do I want to Prismatic Ending a Lotus Petal? I don't think so. I think this is about to be a Hull Breacher, or at least potentially it can be. And I want to respect that. Non-land permanent. Non-land permanent. Artifact, creature, or enchantment. Fairy can bounce that out of play and give me a reasonable play for this turn cycle. Let's fetch. Pick up white mana. Attempt a Teferi. I don't really know that it's working. Oh, it is working. Let's attempt to bounce this out of play, see if I get Hull Breachered. Didn't get Hull Breachered. Okay. Oh, look. An Urza Saga. I'm going to have a lot of flexibility here. I'm always plussing Teferi. Let's get that out of the way now. I handle one token like this, one token like this, and then I do EI stuff. I'm going to go ahead and call it a turn here. There's some temptation to just cast the EI there. Okay. A lot of mana. Physically, how do I cast this EI? Oh, I took him out of my deck. Taking him out of my deck makes that decision much easier, actually. Let's go ahead and just do this like this. Ooh. Stony Silence goes to hand. Force goes there. Brazen Borrower goes to exile. Go ahead and fetch. I'll just take some untapped land. Guess I technically... Oh, no, I already have red. Got blue. This gets me black. We're just going to petty theft the Lotus Petal back to my opponent's hand. They can sacrifice it if they want me not to be able to cast this Brazen Borrower, but that takes an artifact out of play. And, like, it's just free for me to do this. Okay, so they will do that. Effectively serving as a counter spell. Oh, wow. We've got some hammers here. I will go ahead and cast this Stony Silence. Call it a turn. I have Brazen Borrower and double Pyroblast available right now. So I'm not worried about, like, losing my Teferi or anything. My Teferi could get Pithing Needled here. Like, that's a thing that could happen. Actually, because of Mox Opal, I should have... Or no, Stony Silence is in play. Doesn't matter. Now we will petty theft that token out of the way so I can keep my Teferi. And unfortunately, if my opponent has a cool blue card, they can just play it here. I won't have Pyroblast up. Hull Breacher is fine. I'm going to continue to plus Teferi and keep Teferi alive. I will Pyroblast this. I will Prismatic Ending that. That still leaves me with some available mana. I will go ahead and just Ponder in addition to that then. Oh my god, I didn't kill the Hull Breacher first. That was stupid. That's fine. I can probably afford that mistake, but that was very dumb on my end. I can afford the mistake because the treasure token doesn't do anything right now. No. So let's destroy that Hull Breacher. Let's Swords the token. Then I can keep Prismatic Ending for defense grid. Could make my opponent recast this, but I think I'd rather just keep the fairy's loyalty higher. That's Prismatic ending this out of the way. And we've got good cards coming. This is probably quietly doing a very large amount of work. I'm going to say no to that. Pyroblast is good. And now we'll start doing this EI nonsense. Need to hit another land drop here. I think I'll just take Swords to hand. Ponder can go there. Delta can go to exile. I'll play that. Just keep plussing to fairy for when something eventually slips through my grasps. But I have Snapcaster Pyroblast for another card. Karn is occurring, it looks like. Karn is occurring. But I can pressure Karn pretty well. I'll end of turn Brazen Borrower. That's great, it's fine. We'll change my play patterns a bit, though. Alright, let's throw down Brazen Borrower. That gets to kill Karn. Land drop. Attack Karn. Opponent goes to 9. I think I'm going to start by bouncing the defense grid. Oh, Wear Tear is nice. So if my opponent plays defense grid, just pay 5 mana and get rid of it. I'm just going to pass the turn here. And if they don't play it, I will just Snapcaster Pyroblast whatever blue card they play. And if they end up tapping a bunch of Ancient Tombs to do things... Ooh, another Karn. That occurs. I see. They're just going to go for loyalty on Karn. That is acceptable. Should I just play Snapcaster Mage and attack my opponent for 5? Seems very reasonable. That seems very reasonable. I guess I could wear some random artifacts, but I think I'd rather have an answer for Karn. Or, sorry. Oh, I did plus to fairy in this turn cycle? Or no, I didn't. I minused. But I don't need that extra value here. Okay. I'm not afraid of a Walking Ballista right now. Just going to go ahead and attack my opponent down to 2 life here. Play my land drop. Plus Teferi. With Teferi in play, protecting this Wear Tear, and like with me not being just dead to Walking Ballista, I think this is perfectly fine, yeah. I'm pretty happy with the configuration. On the draw, I might consider Force of Negation just to be a little bit better versus some of my opponent's stuff. I might drop like an Arcane Proxy for a Force of Negation when I'm on the draw. My hand seems perfectly reasonable. I have good tools, 3 lands. I can Force of Negation an Initial Chalice or whatever. I'd like to have this Pyroblast up for turn 2. Like to use Prismatic Ending on an actual threat. I think this is fine. Not the best, but okay. Yes, this is fine. What am I scared of? I guess end of turn Hull Breacher into another secondary card that's powerful like Karn would be pretty rough. I think I need to hold up mana here rather than just play Baleful Strix because of this. And I will just attempt to attack this now. I don't want to give my opponent an extra card draw to find Force of Will to protect it. Chalice is totally acceptable right now with the cards that I have in hand. Okay, that's all fine. Let's drop a Strix. We're looking for some action, like some 3 or 4 cost stuff. That's very acceptable. Guarantee that I have white mana here and call it a turn. I say that in case my opponent just plays one of their just draw 7 effects naturally and shuffles my hand. Karn is good. I can't really pressure Karn right now. Not realistically, right? Like, Karn pluses for 1, this attacks for 1. This is never removing the Karn on its own, unless we get into some double tutor scenarios. Ooh, LED? Means my opponent is potentially attempting a Mycosynth Lattice or a Days Undoing. We are going with the Days Undoing. These are some nice cards. See whether or not they end up being better than what my opponent drew, though. Because their deck is very much designed to take advantage of these draw 7s, and mine isn't. So first things first, let's go poke Karn. And lower that loyalty so that if my opponent minuses Karn dies. From there, I can Wear Tear on Chalice and then hold up Source of Plowshares or Brazen Borrower, and also having Force of Will available. This feels pretty okay. Let's go ahead and make some moves here, I think. Let's blow up Chalice while that is still on the stack, so I know whether or not Source to Plowshares is actually live. If Source to Plowshares is live, this just resolves. Okay. And again, before my opponent has open mana, I am just going to go for this. This gives my opponent more information, but is safer for me. Yeah, and I will fire off with a Force of Will right back. I think I need the Brazen Borrower more than I need the EI. Because this just pressures my opponent's Planeswalker, which otherwise might just carry this game on its own. Not quickly, but it will probably do it. Okay, they are going for an immediate card. They're going for Defense Grid, which is scary. That happens. Is there a draw 7 or worse? Okay. Is the last card a draw 7? Fuck, it is. Okay. So now my opponent has 7 cards, 9 mana, and counterspells don't work anymore. It's brutal. Okay. I don't think I beat an Urza Saga with that many artifacts in play. Oh, I'm just dead to Mycosynth Lattice immediately. Just crack LED and 3 treasures, Mycosynth Lattice, and I won't come back from that. Or you can crack all 6 treasures if you prefer to do it that way. Yeah, there's the Lattice. I am comfortable conceding there. GG's. Okay, I'm comfortable keeping this hand. I don't really want to cast this Brainstorm on turn 1 unless my opponent does something that just has to be Force of Willed. Would much rather use that on turn 2, kind of look for my next land, fetch things away, and clear the way for Teferi and Snapcaster Prismatic Ending to do cool things. Alright, we are potentially playing against Delver here. No turn 1 creature is great for me. I will just play this Brainstorm on my own turn. Maybe I don't even need to with that draw. But I do have like Thoughtseizes and stuff. I think I'm just gonna pass the turn. Because there is just a chance that like they aren't Delver. Like, Vulcan to Ponder is Delver most of the time, but, you know, there's other things like Sneak and Show that do exist. Alright, now I care about what my basic land distribution looks like. Is it just one island? Yeah, it's just one island. Okay. Delver occurs, I'll Prismatic Ending that. But basic lands are good, folks. And this game's very different if I get to just fetch a basic land here. I think for mana purposes, I do just do this, but I don't fetch immediately off Flooded Strand. Yeah, I'm okay trading 1 for 1 there. Well, I guess I just fetch and let them Wasteland me. And pay for this. And I'll just trade 1 for 1 with the Wasteland. Pull an Underground Sea out. That's not a particularly valuable land right now. I will pay for that. We will put back the expensive cards. Jace and Teferi. I'll redraw the Teferi. My color situation is going to be pretty rough this game after that initial Wasteland. So that I can do this immediately, I will go ahead and cast this here. But like another Wasteland, for example, basically ends me on the spot. If that doesn't happen and I get another land drop, I get like Snapcaster Prismatic Ending, which helps weather the storm through the early turns of the game. But like very much feeling the price of playing a 4-color mana base right now. That's good. I don't think I want to EI immediately. I think I'm just going to play an end of turn Snapcaster, get some pressure going, and then use EI to try to draw a card and hit my next land drop after that. Okay. Actually, what colors does that Rafine land tap for? Esper. Not red. A tri-land is pretty good right now. And lets me remove that Delver. I go ahead and take this. And let's remove the next threat. This does mean that I can't use EI in the way that I intended on using EI. Any further land drop, though, gives me access to good card draw. And I've got a Force of Will for maybe my opponent's first EI or Murktide Regent. I think I let normal creatures resolve, but it's possible that's wrong. So if I draw any land, I have Snapcaster Prismatic Ending with Force of Will backup. I think I just accept this creature being in play. Alright. Let's try to set up some land drops. Those are not land drops. And given that 2 of these 3 cards I would just like be pondering through, I think I'm just going to take the random card. Nice. Do I cast EI right now? No, I don't think so. I'm going to attempt to use Snapcaster Mage as an Ambush Viper on Dragon Rage Channeler if Dragon Rage Channeler attacks before there's another card type in graveyard. With Instant already in there, this isn't that risky of a line. Like, it's possible I just throw away a Snapcaster Mage for doing this, but I'm pretty far behind in terms of tempo, and my future land drops are not guaranteed as of right now. Phase is probably acceptable. I don't think I Force of Will that. We'll take the 1. Now, hopefully, I get to, like, Force of Will a Murktide Regent that's coming down. Oh, wow. My opponent had Bobble and didn't play Bobble pre-combat to guarantee that this could become a 3/3. That is a decision. Let's just try to remove this creature. I would brainstorm trying to hit my next land drop as well, or be willing to take between 1 and 3 damage to EI. Maybe I'll do that and just try to hit a land drop while also finding a source of plowshares or whatever. Ooh. Well, I'm casting the swords this turn. I'll take the Arcane Proxy, I guess. Not really in the base to cast a hymn anytime soon. End of turn, Crack Bobble. End of turn, Brainstorm. Nope. Hey, Brainstorm's fine. So my mana's very tight, and Wasteland's very good against me, but I kind of have 3 removal spells if you squint funny. Yep. I don't have very many white mana sources left in my deck, huh? Like, I think I have Tundra, Rafine's Tower. This Brainstorm's very important. Okay, cool. This Thoughtseize is basically uncastable if I assume that this needs to be white mana. I'm going to go ahead and throw back Thoughtseize and 1 Force of Will here. Play this, call it a turn. That Bobble is just chilling, which I don't exactly get. Going to fetch and clear the top of the library. Yeah, this is my last remaining white source, which is horrifying, but I need to get it so that I can play this Teferi in this turn cycle. I'd probably play this land first to play around Days. I think I put EI into my hand here rather than one of these white cards because of how good a Wasteland is against me. Now let's drop Teferi. My opponent almost certainly fights over it. Nope, Teferi's in play. We'll go ahead and plus Teferi. Okay, I think we're reaching the portion of the game where I am starting to turn the corner. Okay. Getting tapped Steam Vents out of the way. Are we... No? Would I like to say no to that? I think I'm fine saying no to that. Pitching my redundant Teferi. There's probably some heuristic about whether or not you fight over those. But I don't play enough blue decks to know. I think with like 2 removal spells queued up that are guaranteed to resolve and my opponent playing at sorcery speed, I'm just okay with doing what I did. So like, I can remove this Murktide Regent if I want, or I can just bounce it out of play and make my opponent recast it, which is probably what I'm going to do. I get lightning bolted if I do that, though. Let's start on the EI. and make my decision from there. Wow. Arcane Proxy to hand. Send away him to Tourach. Put Delta in exile. Play Delta. Like an okay opportunity to put a threat into play. Pick up a secondary red source. Make this Badlands because that's red and my first black source. Cast this with Prototype. Target a Swords. Get Murktide Regent out of play. And continue to blank my opponent's counter spells and counterplay to my own stuff. Alright, so now they are finally willing to crack the bauble. They can take their redraw here. And they do get a little bit of card advantage. But I'm not really sure how much that actually matters. I very much have their creatures covered as of right now. Did I plus my Teferi on my turn? Might have forgotten to plus my Teferi. I feel like I was trying to play around a Lightning Bolt by waiting one turn. But looking at this number, it doesn't quite seem right. Alright, there's a Murktide Regent. It is a small one. Brainstorm's cool. I might just Arcane Proxy for EI, though. Okay, my opponent is just done. That's fair. Arcane Proxy being able to hit EI for like 3 mana total is a real strength versus Snapcaster Mage. That's something I should have explicitly laid out during the deck tech that I did not. Okay. So I'm always playing Pyroblast. I'm always playing Hidetsugu Consumes All. Brotherhood's End is interesting. It's a board wipe that I can play that can wipe out multiple Dragon Rage Channelers or Delvers, but it is symmetrical, so it will also kill my things like Baleful Strix. I feel like that's in a consider pile along with these snuff outs. Like my mana's awkward versus Wasteland. Just full stop. I'm not super interested in the black mana as a whole in this matchup. So like these cards are coming in first. Feel good about that. Going to board in Caracas straight up as another white source. Like I'm just going to play one more land versus Delver. And then there's these Force of Wills that I don't feel super good about. Arcane Proxy can also like source a Plowshares from a graveyard when I don't actually have white mana. That, I guess, is a thing that helps a bit. Against like Red Elemental Blast and stuff too, for winning myself like this doesn't feel super good. I think I'm still playing at least one of these. Because if I board in these 4 cards, that still leaves me with one slot that I don't necessarily like. I think Black's unrealistic, and Thoughtseiz's Loss of Life is a little spooky. Also makes me slightly less reliant on black mana, which I don't mind at all. My opening hand is kind of whatever. I'm going to assume that if I can actually deploy my spells and play reasonable Magic versus my opponent, I will eventually overwhelm them. And hence I'm willing to keep the 5-lander. Is it a good 5-lander? Not really, it's kind of whatever, but ooh, don't mind that at all. That's probably a turn 4 play. I'll attempt to do some other stuff. I'll probably intentionally play some cards into Daze to try and bait my opponent to Daze some stuff early. More than happy to just take a little bit of damage in the initial turns of the game here. Sure. They topped whatever card from their Surveil, which means it's pretty good. Because before there's multiple card types in the graveyard, like you want to pretty aggressively Surveil. But I don't necessarily know what pretty good means for them right now. Like I don't know if that was their second land that they needed, their second threat. I will respond to that. This is Daze bait right here. I don't actually care about this Delver. Nice. Yeah, so we are just trying to pave the way to resolve Brotherhood's End on turn 3 or maybe turn 4. And take out both of these creatures. That's the plan. So everything that takes a counterspell out of my opponent's hand is very strong. And whether or not the Delver blind flips might be the tiebreaker for whether or not, oh yikes, for whether or not I can just go for it naked on turn 3 or whether I have the time to wait for turn 4. So I'm effectively at lower than 18 life because I am going to need to fetch here. I know one of my opponent's cards, and now the question is, am I willing to cast Brotherhood's End this turn and lose to Daze, or would I prefer to give my opponent one more draw for Force of Will or Force of Negation? I will take half of my life total and give my opponent probably about 3 more looks at cards. I think I'm willing to cast a Dazeable EI this turn. I think that's my plan. That's like a Valk here. I think I cast this hoping to get a Daze or Force out of my opponent's hand, and then try to resolve this next turn after taking 6 more damage. Oh fuck, the Pyroblast that I knew about. Yeah, I went, my cards don't care about this. And then I drew EI. Alright. That was stupid. Objectively a mistake. I think I'm waiting on Brotherhood's End until next turn anyway. And like maybe I do just need to just trade 1 for 1 so that like this stuff is better later. Oop. That one was me, in case you are now frantically checking your phone. Alright, I'm down to 6. Oh. Well, if they don't have a counterspell, this is pretty ideal. 3 damage to each creature and each planeswalker. No ability to protect this. They have the Force. I am dead. Lightning Bolt target me. They topped a card, which is scary. I am dead to a Lightning Bolt now. I'm okay against a creature that my opponent plays out since I do have Jace here. They topped a card and then are not playing anything. I think I am going to eat a Lightning Bolt. Let's fetch like a Tundra here. Attempt Jace. And I fluster that when I think my opponent has Lightning Bolt. Do I have any choice? I might not have any choice. My opponent wants to play around a Spell Pierce effect. They just wait until they have more mana, and then I'm just dead to it. I'm gonna fight. Second white source, maybe. Force of Will is now off for me. And my Fate Sealing, I'm probably gonna Fate Seal my opponent here. I will not use that ability. You can keep that card. We'll see if I'm dead to Lightning Bolt. Not immediately. There's the land that I know about. Oh, fuck. Land puts Lightning Bolt on top. That's fine. Ah, shit. Yeah, that's a good card to top. I don't think I have any outs to that. Don't have, like, a Plague Engineer that I'm drawing towards. Yeah. Protection from the chosen player is rough. I don't have edicts. Shit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, I can play Brazen Borrower Swords to Plowshare it to buy 1 turn, but I am not going to beat that card resolved. Let's save the clock for the next game. True Name's rough. I'll have a Force of Will and 2 Pyroblasts for that. How many True Names are there? Probably 1. Probably 1. It's not like Opposition Agent is insane or anything. I could junk one of those to play another Force of Will. But again, I know that my opponent has those Pyroblasts. I don't know, I could play some discard. Do I want to keep the 1 land Brainstorm hand here? I think I don't when I have like multiple cards that I need to be holding up. I think I'm going to ship that one and just look for something that has more land. Yeah, this is fine. I'm going to keep this. I think pitching the Teferi. I don't know, I could just pitch the Force of Negation. I'm not really ready for that card yet. Yeah, let's do that. But Wasteland's very good against me here. Let's just play the tower and pass. The land base here, like, definitely has some awkwardness to it. For example, I want to play Mystic Sanctuary on turn 2 because like it's going to be tapped, but I also want to play Prismatic Ending around days. But raw number of lands just matters so much here that I think I'm fine keeping this. When I keep a hand that has more lands, I can actually use my cantrips to look for real spells. I'm gonna drop Delta here and just attempt to kill the Delver. This means that I have access to another white source, which is very nice. Which is very necessary, in fact. Yep. I could end of turn Brainstorm here because my land drops are so awkward. I will Brainstorm in response to that. White sources matter the most here. And let's see what we can find. Cheap removal would be good. Daze is acceptable. If I was going to do this, I wanted to do it before Dragon Ridge Channeler was in play so that my opponent doesn't get to attempt to surveil. Sorry, I had to step away for a moment. I am just going to do tapped Mystic Sanctuary this turn. I think I would like to attempt to Fairy next turn and see where that goes. Well, I could just attempt Brazen Borrower next turn. Like make my opponent fight over a Brazen Borrower. And then do Teferi afterwards. That's a little bit better versus Pyroblast. Let's do that. I'm not going to play Ponder here, because if I Ponder, then if I do hardcast Brazen Borrower, it's dazable. Or, words. If I do Petty Theft, it's dazable. Alright, do I want to just hardcast this and attempt to trade with this creature in combat? Actually, it doesn't fly right now. JK. I've answered my own question. So let's attempt to get this out of the way. I may end up taking 3 damage instead of 1 damage for doing this. Let the record show. But if I bait out a Pyroblast, then Teferi has a better chance of resolving. Teferi is a much more impactful card. And my opponent has topped something that they want to draw, which is scary. Maybe it is just EI. Continuing to hit land drops makes my Teferi better later. Okay. Force pitching Delver. They've topped that card yet again. Now I'm just going to try to hit a land drop while looking for more removal. Yeah, I think that's fine. Let's stack like this. No shuffle. Make the land drop. And Hidetsugu Consumes All is really good. Unless my opponent just drops something like a True Name Nemesis this turn. Oh. Okay, what's that last card? Like, what was... It's not the Mystic Sanctuary. That was their remaining card in hand. An EI? Is it just True Name still? Oh, I am going to actually need to fetch here, aren't I? Sure. Want another Volk? Yes. Let's go ahead and drop this. And this dodges a lot of the Pyroblast type stuff. Their last card is... No, they would have played a Murktide Regent, so it's not Murktide Regent. Okay, cool. That sat on the stack for longer than I expected, though, so... I don't know exactly what's up there. Alright. Let's see if this last card is indeed the True Name Nemesis that I am afraid of. True Name and EI are about the only things that make sense to me. Yep. So now this game is fully a race. And I have a distraction. This is also lightning boltable the first turn it's on the backside, which is not fantastic. Surgical Extraction? Okay. That is a card that you are allowed to board in this matchup. I don't know how correct that is. It's like, it's not just Swords to Plowshares, like I have Swords to Plowshares and Prismatic Ending and whatnot. That is what it is. Graveyards are gone. I think I just play this and take a card immediately. And if my opponent wants to take a turn... You're just a touch late, Pyroblast. If my opponent wants to take a turn off to kill the Teferi, I'm fine with that. And if they don't, I'm very happy with that. I will pretty aggressively Pyroblast any card here, because I want to have a reasonable target for like Snapcaster Mages and such in graveyard. Again, every hit that doesn't go at me matters. Yeah, my opponent realizes that and leaves me with the Teferi. Yep. Alright, rough. I'll plus Teferi. I'm going to hold this land for the purposes of Brainstorm. It also just puts a little bit of fear in my opponent. My opponent gets the first attack on an otherwise similar board. Oh, please. Please go here. Please go here. Ah, shit. Going at me. Go to 9. Enough out. Not looking good in this exact spot. Does not answer true name. It answers other creatures, though, which is a big deal. With Teferi in play, I know that like this isn't getting removed by a lightning bolt immediately. Nope, this is not legendary, so I can't bounce this with Caracas, just in case that's something that you were thinking about. It feels like it should be legendary, as like it's got the name of a legendary creature in it. Alright, still coming at me. My opponent kills me in 2 attacks, and I don't kill them before they kill me as of right now. But we can hopefully change that. I need to find another threat. Baleful Strix is a Magic the Gathering card. I'll put back enough out for Rakas here. Batch. Pick up something else that helps me cast this Strix. I think this one. Draw my card. Another land drop's not what I want to see. I'll go and attack my opponent for 4. Put them to 9. This is 5, 6. I need 3 more power. I can do it with Brazen Borrower. So I could cash in Teferi, draw a card, try to hit Brazen Borrower, and then that kills my opponent next turn. That will not play well into Days. Alternatively, try to find like a Swords to Plowshares. Can't really bounce Baleful Strix. You need that extra point of power. I will take Teferi out of play here. Snapcaster Mage. That's real close. That's in striking distance. 5, 6, 7, 8. So if my opponent fetches, I have something that represents lethal. Alright. I will go to 2. 5, 6, 7, 8. They don't even know about this. Am I missing something? Was my opponent dead for prizes, and knowing that they had me dead, I don't know. I don't know. Okay, this is round 4 now. I feel like I'm 0-3, but I'm technically 1-2. Okay, that could have been worse. That absolutely could have been worse. So if I make it to my next turn, I can technically him to Tourach. Inner? Okay. I think, because I don't know when exactly I'm casting this Brainstorm, I'm just going to go ahead and cast this here. And if I... it's a little awkward if I trade for a Pyroblast, though, because I'm about to him my opponent's hand. Yeah, I think I've changed my mind. I think I'm just going to get a tapped Rafine's Tower here. I'm going to ignore the fact that, like, Blood Moon is a card that exists in Magic the Gathering, because I don't think my deck beats it. Scalding Tarn needs to be bad lands or Expressive Iteration. Let's do that. My opponent is taking these pauses between my game actions, which I'm not sure if they are double queuing, multitasking, or what, but it's something that I'm noticing. You know, I've already kind of gained over a minute of clock in like 2 turn cycles. Okay. Okay, no. All right, so my initial read that this was something closer to a Storm deck was correct. Okay, sure. So if I hit a land drop, I get to Arcane Proxy into another Hymn to Tourach. I guess is cool. Though not currently, actually. Do I just want to play EI and use that to look for a counterspell and make a second land drop with that? Do I want to hold up Brainstorm? I could still probably hold up Brainstorm afterwards anyway. Let's go ahead and just do this. I guess I wanted to ferry over a Brazen Borrower. I don't know, Brazen Borrower just attacks. Let's take the Brazen Borrower. Ferry can go to bottom. Delta can go to exile. I will play Delta, pass the turn. One's got a decent amount of mana, but not a lot of things that are scary. I need to convert these Swords to Plowshares into counter spells or threats. I know Bryant has been testing like TES variants with white in them. I haven't had any time to actually look into what he's been doing. Feels like either something he built or something inspired by what he's been working on. That is a very weird time to use that bauble. I think you accomplish the same thing but better by doing that on my end step because you end up with the card for your turn rather than not having the card for your turn. Okay. So now my opponent has 2 cards in hand. This is the time where like Arcane Proxy is very good. I will play a Brainstorm, shuffle away some of these swords, and then Hymn to Tourach both of the cards out of my opponent's hand. Although Arcane Proxy, take out both those cards, and then take out LED also sounds really good. That sounds very good. Okay, I really like this Arcane Proxy card. I was a little lukewarm on it in the deck tech, but now that I've seen it in action... Oh, we just took out 2 lands. Now that I've seen it in action, I am a big fan. And now we'll take out LED with this, and then in the future we'll Brainstorm away both these copies of Swords to Plowshares. And that's good. That is unfortunately like not going to be good enough. This can only be activated at sorcery speed, right? Activate only during your turn. So this is 2 damage, putting my opponent to 16. And then I think I'll just Prismatic Ending this away right away. Like, I want to Greed Brainstorm, but missing is very bad. So, ending for X equals 2, taking out the Wish Claw, and getting us the game 1 win. Yeah, that felt really good. Stony Silence seems good. Flusterstorm is good. Force is good. Wear Tear is probably good enough. Hidetsugu Consumes All seems good. These probably fall into sketchy territory, as does Fairy. I am going to remove 4 Swords to Plowshares from my deck. These are 5 cards. Most of the rest of the stuff that's in my deck is reasonable. Brazen Borrower is a little weak, but it just physically hurts my opponent. And life totals matter in case, like, Ad Nauseam, Peer into the Abyss type cards happen. My opponent showed me Underground Sea, but didn't actually cast any cantrips that game. I don't know that I'm excited about Pyroblast. Junk Jace? Jace seems pretty slow here. Baleful Strix isn't really great either. Okay, let's try this, and I have some flexibility to try out Pyroblast and or Brotherhood's End later. This is no land. This is innately not a good hand. I am just going to keep it, though. I believe pitching the Brazen Borrower. And I just kind of assume that between Ponder and Brainstorm, find something reasonable to weather the storm in the initial turns. I can also just naturally draw something like a Thoughtseize or Force of Will. So, like, that's a thing as well. And I'm just going to do the one that looks at the most cards here. Force of Will is the ideal draw. I think these cards are good enough that I just take them. I think I'm going to leave the Hymn on top, put Fluster there, go shuffle, and call that a turn. I don't exactly know what my opponent's approach is going to be in terms of the speed of this game. Okay, yep. This is totally good with me. This will take the Flusterstorm. And then I'll use the hymn to take out 2 of the 3 of these remaining cards in most circumstances. Alright. Go get him, him. Oh, that was juicy. Yeah, I honestly don't blame you there. GG. Okay, this will be the final round. We're 2-2. This hand is totally reasonable, so long as discard is actually good against my opponent. You getting Delvered for, I think, the 3rd time in this league? Seems likely. Targeted themselves with that. They just want to take this card. Wasteland's going to be very good against me. I think that just is what it is. Feed on an Underground Sea here, and try to punch a hole in my opponent's plan. Yeah. This feels like I just take the Daze and make my opponent 2-for-1 themselves with Force of Will. Because the Daze is going to be very good when supported by double Wasteland. And I am definitely feeling the cost of playing a 4-color deck today. Alright. Oh man, my opponent top decked a creature. That's rough. Yeah. So, I am in sort of a disaster level situation where my cards are becoming uncastable very quickly. I think I am going to get a basic this turn. That takes me off of him to Tourach being a reasonable card to cast. But I think I just have to give up on that card. I am happy with land drops. I'm not happy with Brazen Borrower. I am happy with Ponder. My ideal is just finding a white removal spell, taking this out. I think I'm gonna try to high roll this a little bit here. I still hit the bonus land that I wanted, so that is good. I would just like to kill this creature. Oh, sweet. I would like to kill this creature before it really stocks the graveyard. I'm at 15. Or Arcane Proxy. I am going to play a Dazable Brainstorm here. If my opponent wants to do anything about that. Oh my gosh, that's wonderful. That's so good. We're going to put back both these hymns. They are both uncastable as of right now. We'll go ahead and fetch the other Tundra. I will go to my opponent's turn, and then on their turn, I will Swords to Plowshares this. And I effectively have 3 more copies of Swords to Plowshares beyond this. Alright, nice. The board is clear. I'm going to get Wastelanded. Yep. Kind of know what's happening from here. My opponent didn't want to just Pyroblast a Brainstorm last turn. See if anything has changed now. Still no. Gonna get Volcanic Island. I like these cards. I'd probably throw back one of each one of the expensive cards here. I don't know, Arcane Proxy is so good. Alright. I just redraw the Arcane Proxy. Play Ponder and just use it as an immediate redraw. Bam. See if that wants to trade here. Nope. Very Thoughtseize. And keep those other cards. So now I'm starting to reach the point in the game where my expressive iterations can help bail me out from those 2 initial Wastelands and Dazes that gave my opponent early tempo. A 3rd Wasteland becomes awkward because then I'm like fighting over white versus red mana. So hopefully I don't have to sweat that. Okay, good. Not a Wasteland. Every card that is not Wasteland is a pretty big win for me. There's a Delver. That's fine. So I might want to use a blue card this turn while my opponent does not have Pyroblast up. It does expose me to Daze. I think that's fine. If I trade for Force of Will plus blue card here, I'm happy. If this resolves, I'm happy. I'm just unhappy if this gets dazed. I'm also unhappy because of the ugly wear, but that's not related to gameplay at all. Alright, I'm unhappy. But, like, I do just have another one, and then I have Expressive Iteration as well. Like, my situation is not actually bad. I'm not, like, truly unhappy. Ooh. That's a little scary. Now I go to 10. And opponent has a decent number of counter spells available. I think I lead on EI, hoping that this eats the Pyroblast. It does. I'll then go to my opponent's turn and Swords to Plowshares this. They've got the third days, but I'm more expecting that this eats Force of Will. I open myself up to Force of Negation exactly. Well, okay, good. That's actually the one that I probably wanted them to go for in that situation. So let's get that Force of Will out of hand. Force, pitching Force. And now most of my draws are good. Any land is incredibly potent. Oh, fuck. Did not want to see that. Anyway, any land is incredibly good. Any cantrip is very good. Any removal spell is very good. Like, I am at the worst onboard position, but it will not take much for me to pivot. That's probably the worst draw in the deck. Like, the Hymns and Thoughtseizes are not reasonable here. Now, Mystic Sanctuary puts an EI back on top. Yep. I don't think I play a Snapcaster Mage as a 2-1 attacker. Maybe I'm wrong, though. Dragon Rage Channeler. Yep. That is a 3-3. So I am dead next turn if I miss on a removal spell. Alright, I'm not going to play the Snapcaster. Okay, I did find a removal spell. So I will cast this with Prototype. Cast a Swords to Plowshares. Dragon Rage Channeler is much scarier than the Brazen Borrower. This is unfortunately going to put me to 1, which means that I can't fetch. That probably indirectly means that I've lost. I also have used both of my Tundras, so in order to get white mana, I need the Rafine's, whatever it's called. There's another EI. Finding Murktide Regent. Yep, that's gonna do it, I think. Yeah, my opponent's third Wasteland won them this game, because I just have these resources stuck in my hand that I can't quite deploy. Alright, so let's figure out what we did before. It was Fluster, Pyroblast. I think I played this. I played this as a bonus land. I know I thought about this stuff. I think I took all of the discard out of my deck to reduce my reliance on black mana. That gives me these as a starting point and the bonus land. And I think I was like not overly happy with Opposition Agent. It like attacks for 3, but is just dreadfully slow in the matchup. It doesn't trade with flying bodies. I might want like Snuff Out or Force of Negation. I also wasn't a big fan of these Force of Wills. Might have done this before, and then like there's some things like True Name Nemesis that might make me want to have more copies of something like this. Awkward mana. I still think it's a keep, but it's awkward mana. The cards that are in hand are very good in the matchup. I need other colors of mana, but I do have cantrips to find them. Cantrip to find them, rather. I'm just going to lead on my basic land and pass here. It's possible that I'll do an end of turn Brainstorm. I'm not super excited about that. I would like to get a little bit deeper into my deck first. They're targeting themselves. See what they want to do with a fetch land. And they're not into it. Creature? Probably not. I'm wrong. Seems like if you have the creature in hand, you just play out the creature and don't do that whole bobble thing that they just did. I'd really like to use a removal spell on this Delver around days, but there's some risk here. Oh, this is great. Jace goes back. I think I just put the Hidetsugu Consumes All back and redraw that. My opponent gets a land here. Fetching is very awkward because I have 2 white cards and 2 red cards. So that's a thing. I get the red. This Pyroblast into Hidetsugu Consumes All is a better curve, assuming this doesn't get wastelanded, which is not a safe assumption. And if my opponent does wasteland this, my white sources are still in my deck for later. As a counterpoint, having Swords to Plowshares in graveyard is better if I draw like an Arcane Proxy later. There's also the fact that like I might not even want to play Hidetsugu Consumes All into Daze. Okay. So we are probably going to see another creature being deployed here. It is a Delver. Sure, that's fine. Okay. We'll see how my draw changes my desire to do things. So if I play Hidetsugu Consumes All next turn, I have Force of Negation up the following turn, or vice versa. If I play Hidetsugu Consumes All here, I have a better chance at actually stopping a Murktide Regent with the Exile All Graveyards clause. I haven't given my opponent a good Daze target this game. There's a huge chance that my opponent doesn't play anything on their turn, and I just waste 3 mana. Given that I have more removal spells in hand, even though I don't have the ability to cast them, I think I am just going to jam here. Like, I'm okay with the 1-for-1 trade. That probably pushes back the casting of an expressive iteration by a turn. Oh, nice. And sometimes that just happens. Now, the awkward thing here is that if a Murktide Regent happens this turn, and I exile the graveyards, I could end up growing that. But this is a pretty big, fresh breath of air for me. Oh, Brazen Borrower to exile. Sure. Okay, yeah, that feels like the land that you go after there. Okay, I get to nuke the graveyards, which is super cool for me. I'll hide this Karakas in my hand for a little while. And I'll probably pretty aggressively Force of Negation. Okay, sure. Alright, we're chilling. Brazen Borrower is a fantastic draw. I'm quite happy with that. Alright, so I have the ability to protect this from a Lightning Bolt effect. Although I might not even do that. Ooh, nice. That's fine. Once this thing has 1 counter on it, it's pretty resilient. Especially since it nuked the graveyard, so an Unholy Heat is less likely to come after it. Okay. That's perfectly reasonable. Not the biggest fan of that. I am just going to floop a Brazen Borrower into play here. It drops Force of Negation, which I'm not the biggest fan of, but threats are threats. And I'm very much trying to turn the corner here. See if I can get 6 in. Oh, I do. This is now immune to Lightning Bolt. And I've got Force of Negation for like an EI that my opponent tries to cast. Yep. That's all fine. Fine with doing a sorcery speed prismatic ending on that creature. Okay, it just worked. This is pleasant and unexpected. My opponent still has a bunch of cards in hand. So probably have some things like Murktide Regent that are just sort of uncastable right now. Maybe some sort of a situational counterspell like a Flusterstorm or Daze that just doesn't quite do anything right now. No? I'm fine with making this Dazeable. I don't think it's worth giving up the Brainstorm here. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, so that put you to 4. This is a 5/5. I think I'm even good through some of the trampoly stuff, especially since I can just Swords of Murktide Regent out of the way. Going to be 1 card in hand. So no Force of Will on this spell that I'm about to cast. I will Brainstorm first, though, because there's plenty of plays that just kill my opponent outright this turn. And Snuff Out is one of them. So let's put back these red cards that I can't cast. Pay 4 life for a Snuff Out, and go ahead and kill my opponent. Alright, good stuff. I do have to win 1 more game, unfortunately. We're not done. So, the red for Brotherhood End is a little tough with how frequently I'm being wastelanded, and it does have some negative synergy with some of the other stuff in my deck. On the draw, I might want to board that out for another copy of Force of Will. But again, against a pile of blasts, I'm not super excited about that. It's Brotherhood's End. This hand is a keep. Its removal is a little bit slow, but I have 3 lands and 2 cantrips, so I'm good with how this is starting off. Again, there's going to be some tension here in casting these cards while also respecting white removal. They bobbled themselves there. So much brainstorm. I believe Underground Sea is the thing that I expose to Wasteland, and I 100% will be casting a Brainstorm in this turn cycle, especially with 3 of them in hand. Ponder's fine. I believe... or no, they played the Misty last turn. JK. Okay, no shuffle. And we'll just go ahead and fire this off end of turn. A little bit more land than I would like, but it's certainly not the end of the world. We'll play a fetch land, and we're 100% fetching in this turn cycle. It's my current plan to just Brazen Borrower some creature out of play if my opponent plays one. That occurs. Great. Cards not named Wasteland make me happy. Alright, no creature. I think I'm going to go ahead and just fire off a Brainstorm prior to fetching here. Lands are good. Mystic Sanctuary I don't want. Go ahead and put back the Brazen Borrower. Put back Ponder. Put back the Brazen Borrower. And fetch this away. I think finding another bulk. I could go for Rafine's Tower. Go for Rafine's Tower. Found more land. I'm not interested in playing a 3-drop into Daze this turn. I think I'm just going to go ahead and Ponder and continue to make my land drops. Yeah, that's probably above average at this point. Is it, though? These don't represent white removal spells yet, and Hidetsugu Consumes All is going to junk my graveyard. I have changed my mind. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yep, okay. So how many forces do I have in my deck? I have 1 force in my deck. Just a little worried about my opponent dropping something like Atrium Nemesis with counterspell backup. I'm not really prepared for that. I haven't seen one yet. Them wiggling for that sort of position would not be great for me. At this point, I probably want to shuffle away some land here. Holy moly. Put back 1, 2, and then immediately fetch out that Volk. Yep. Okay, I mean, I'm doing a great job of hitting land drops, which is cool. So, I think I just play Teferi and start trading with Pyroblast type cards. Yep. That's fine. And then when my opponent plays a 1-drop, I hit Hidetsugu Consumes All. I'm not as good against a Murktide Regent as I would like to be right now. Yes, that's fine. I'm trying to make my opponent play a 1-drop threat before I drop Hidetsugu Consumes All. Brotherhood's End, Teferi, Time Raveler, non-bow is a thing that exists as well that I'll need to try to be a little bit careful of. Yes, that is fine. There's another land drop. Ooh, are we just gonna see more creatures? I'm so happy if it's just more creatures being played out. Oh, not that one though. Not happy to see this one. Murktide Regent. I need to bounce that out of play with Teferi. Unless I otherwise find white mana. I'm going to cast this Ponder and sculpt my turn a little bit. Yes. Very happy to find Swords to Plowshares. No shuffle. I think the way this goes is I cast Teferi in an attempt to shut off removal spells, or sorry, counter spells from my opponent. This is the Force of Will check. Pitching Daze. After they've pitched a Daze, I'm happy enough to attempt Swords to Plowshares on Murktide Regent. I would not like to take 6 damage. I am punished. That's okay. My opponent revealed their Scalding Tarn. That was very nice of them. My Hidetsugu Consumes All has now become awkward. EI is good. I can still get to red for Brotherhood's End here. The issue is that my opponent's hand is probably just like stacked full of counter spells. Oh, those are not good. None of that deals with the Murktide Regent. Force of Will go to my hand. Send away Opposition Agent. That can go to exile. Yeah, I will still do that. Attempt to take out the Delver. And then next turn, I need to find an answer to the Murktide Regent. My opponent has 4 cards in hand. One of them is a Scalding Tarn. Others are counter spells. That's not great for me. Fine. I need to find an answer to this. I'm at 5. That is an answer to this. I have to hardcast that. I can't pay this life here. And unfortunately, I don't have a blue card to back this up. Alright. So is there another counter spell? I play around the soft stuff. This plays around Pyroblast. Nice. So now I need to dodge another Murktide Regent, because I otherwise have answers to these small creatures. And their Mystic Sanctuary is in exile? No. Oh, they also bounced it back to their hand with Daze. That's okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Do I need to get this going? I don't think so. I think I can just hold up Force of Will. Then I find one more land drop, and I can do this with backup, or I can just treat this as a removal spell. I want to be able to force an EI, or a Murktide Regent for that matter. So, okay, great. I am going to get this going now. I lose out on a little bit of theoretical value, and I do nuke my graveyard for the 2 prototypes, but I want to start working towards this thing being able to kill my opponent. Yep. Alright, Ponder to exile. Sure. Little creatures are fine. Murktide Regent, or a True Name Nemesis, or a Maddening Hex would not be fine. I also want to be very careful about going to 3 life specifically. One of the cards that I suspect my opponent could have is Lightning Bolt. There's Mystic Sanctuary. Rebuying EI. Yep. So my opponent doesn't have Lightning Bolt, otherwise Bolt me, Mystic Sanctuary, Bolt me. Is a pretty easy line to play towards. Sure. Love drawing this. Let's go ahead and do my own EI. Good enough for a force. Okay, situational counterspell. That's something that I kind of sussed out earlier. EI again. Finding another EI, which is disgusting. Yep. Sure. Finding Dragon Rage Channeler. Brotherhood's End timing is really awkward with my Hidetsugu Consumes All, now that I'm thinking about it, isn't it? Okay, doesn't matter. There's a 3/3. I guess I do this now. I don't want to let my opponent untap and rattle off some spells. But now that swords can't be used for a Murktide Regent. But I don't think I can potentially take a hit from that card next turn, and I don't think I can let my opponent have the selection they're going to get from surveilling multiple times. How many Murktides are in exile, by the way? 1, 2. Okay. No shuffle. They found a Delver. Delver's fine here. I have an answer to that, and this, once it attacks once, is outside of range of Lightning Bolt killing it. Which is absolutely a huge deal here. Alright. Fantastic. So I have 1, 2, 3, 1. I am gonna go ahead and play this land. I don't want to lose out to multiple pieces of soft disruption here. Okay, cool. Brainstorm's fine. Pyroblast gets pointed at EI or Murktide Regent. I don't point it at a Delver or a random cantrip. Sure. Brazen Borrower. I probably have to point it at that. That's just like a flipped Delver with haste here. So I'm going to check and just make sure my Mystic Sanctuary has not been used yet. It has not. I believe I will be using Mystic Sanctuary to put Expressive Iteration on top of my library. Timeout win is also possible, but not super likely when I'm at 5. Yep, baubles are good. Delver's fine. I could, I guess, more safely just put Swords to Plowshares on top of my library. And then I am always, always, always hitting a removal spell for that Delver. I don't know. Maybe I should take the value here. How many removal spells are in my deck? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, kind of 10, 11. Well, yeah, I should probably just take the EI. It's worse against Pyroblast, though. I am just going to take the EI, though, because I need to survive more than just one turn here. And this is my best way to do that. Okay, yeah. I will crash in for my 4. Yeah, maybe my gut feeling to just put the Swords to Plowshares on top was just correct, but that card isn't Pyroblast and instead is like a Daze or something. Another Pyroblast. I think my opponent was supposed to cash in this Bobble already, because if their top card is, or I guess did they know their top card already? I don't know. I can't use the mental energy right now to keep track of that. All right. Oh, that's disappointing. It looks like I win this one if I just go for the Swords to Plowshares play based on what they drew. Yeah. That is disappointing. Not going to concede. I will. No, I guess there's no world where they hold back, right? Because they're always just dead to this swing. Yeah, should have gone for Swords. Well, I mean, in this case, I should have gone for Swords, but if that card isn't exactly another Pyroblast, then, like, going for the EI is incredibly good. All right, so let's go ahead and wrap this up here. Overall thoughts on the deck list. Shaky sideways thumb. This is a deck that has made clear choices in deck building to be able to play a bunch of cards at the expense of having a reasonable mana base. And I think if you are going to want to go this 4-color route, it's probably better to be in green than black because of how quickly Minsk and Boo ends games. This was a league that took a decent amount of time to record, even considering that one of my opponents, the Storm player, scooped their rounds very, very quickly. This is a deck that is low to end games, so I wouldn't be very excited about this for Paper Magic right now. And I dislike some of the negative synergy in the deck list. So, for example, there's a lot of sequences of opening hands where the lands that you get don't cast your spells, even when you have the appropriate number of lands to cast your spells. And then there's also some things like Hidetsugu Consumes All, clearing the graveyard for Arcane Proxy, that are like definitely a little bit awkward and like definitely came up multiple times. Like in no capacity was my play perfect. You know, there were a couple of very close decisions at a couple of points that I didn't know which way I should break on. Like I could have played a round Pyroblast in that last round to end up with the 3-2 instead of the 2-3. Again, not 100% sure whether or not my decision was correct, but given how many hits for EI were there, I think it was fine to do that. I don't know. I could sit here and think about that for a very long time, but that's probably not what people are here for. So I don't feel a strong draw towards playing a deck that looks like this in Legacy right now. Sometimes, like Prismatic Ending, missing Murktide Regent, or other similar things like that came up as well. I feel like I want some Sudden Edicts in this 75 somewhere. I don't exactly know what they replace, but I'm a little light on answers. Well, not a little light. I'm pretty much empty on answers to things like True Name Nemesis, which is something that I'd like to address in deck building. The all-star of this league, like quietly, I think is Arcane Proxy. Like the ability to cast like EIs and Hymn to Tourachs, like at 3 mana, is like pushing you ahead of curve versus Snapcaster Mage. I think that's very interesting, and there might be like something very real with this card somewhere. And we did cast the 7 mana side of it a couple of times. I think with that being said, I'm going to call it a day. I'm going to go edit some videos. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please click the like button on the way out. Helps out a lot. And if you have any thoughts about the deck building, throw them in the comments. All right, see ya.